Welcome back to Benny's Custom Works, proudly supported by Valvoline and Sparesbox. Don't forget BCW5 on checkout. This week we're back on the Cresta, doing a lot of little different things as usual. This time of year comes around, you want to get it ready for the track again, whatnot. So we're going to be doing a lot of actual fuel system revision today. There's a lot of stuff going on in the boot that 2 years down the track I'm not really that happy with as far as the way the stuff's placed and laid out. It can definitely be done a lot neater, so we're going to tackle that today. We're also going to be changing the diff center, so for those of you that aren't right up to speed on the Cresta, it currently has a 323 diff gear in it, and after speaking to Pete, he's kind of said that we should probably go to a 3:5 ratio to make the converter work a little bit better. It's actually loading the converter a little bit too hard at the moment, and at the top end of the track we're seeing about 7% converter slip. And according to Pete, 3 to 5% is really where we want to be at. So effectively, we're just giving power away at the moment. So by going back to the 3.5 gear in it, we should be able to sort of make the most of the power we've got, but not over rev it too much that we're going to run out of RPM before we get to the end of the track. So we're going to start on this fuel system, get it all heaps neater. I've got some cool little bits from Raceworks, and we've also got some stuff from Motion Raceworks in the States, who we got from Warspeed Industries in Sydney. They're a stockist of Motion stuff, so if you do need Motion stuff in Australia, go and speak to Troy. But we're going to tear all this old junk out, and then we're going to actually make this all neat and nice and happy and 2022 Benny spec, not 2019 or 2018 Benny spec. So there's a lot going on in the boot here. We've got a lot of actual AN line. We've got dash 10, dash 8 and dash 6 currently sort of coming out of the top of the fuel tank, and it's turned into somewhat of a Christmas tree. It's pretty tall and it does get in the road a lot. The cable ties are, I mean, it ties it together and it's functional, but it's not really pretty. So the idea today is to basically declutter a lot of this. Also the flex sensor that we put in this when the car was built, that was pretty much all that was available at the time, but you can actually get a much more compact version now. So this is the Continental sensor from Raceworks, and we've already pre-fitted it to this Motion Raceworks bypass tube, which is a pretty nice thing, because what the issue is with most flex sensors is you've only got a 3/8 or a dash 6 tube going through the sensor, and a lot of high horsepower stuff, a dash 6 return's actually too small. In our case, we run a dash 10 primary line and a dash 8 return. So by stepping it down to a dash 6 here, we may as well run a dash 6 line the whole way. But inversely, if you have too small of a return line, you end up with too much fuel pressure at the other end, and basically you just can't actually tune it properly. So yeah, one of these bypass setups actually runs a fuel through the sensor, but it also has a separate passage to run through this this bracket. And yeah, effectively this is going to flow, from memory it'll flow up to the same volume as a dash 10 line. They do say you can actually put this in the supply or the return line. So I mean, we're going to put ours in the return line because that's how we had it set up previously. So as far as the layout of that goes, we're just going to stick with what we had. But the basic premise of this all is to move everything inside of the tube structure inside the boot of the car, and then eventually we're actually going to fabricate a cover for the fuel cell and the fire system to just make it neater. It's a bit busy, so I just want to make it neater and tidier, and yeah, I don't know. My OCD is not happy with it, so we're going to make it nicer and keep on going. Now, while we're changing some of the stuff in the fuel system, I wanted to change the filler as well and put one of these dog dishes, I guess you'd call it, around the filler. Previously, before at the track in a rush, especially at drag week and that sort of deal, we have actually missed the filling point, and without this catch tray, it actually spills fuel all through the boot. You'd probably be able to tell that by the fact that the sound deadening's all changed color and stuff. So yeah, one of the main reasons for doing some of this stuff today is to make it safer as well. So yeah, with these dog dish or catch trays, it actually holds the fuel in there, and while it's still spilt, it's much easier to just sort of clean that out with a rag than have to try and mop half of the boot out. I think at one point we even actually did it when there was like someone's bag or some clothes or something in the boot. So obviously less than ideal when you're trying to clean up fuel and it's all through the whole boot of the car. And I mean, if it's built far enough, it could potentially actually run into the car, so not ideal either. So yeah, we're trying to make it a bit safer, especially for drag week and drag challenge and that sort of stuff this year. We want to sort of step it up a little bit and also be able to actually use the boot more. So once this box is around the fuel cell, we can actually just chuck stuff in the boot wherever we want. And also having all the fuel system inside that cage means that there's going to be no sort of potential damage to the flex sensor or to the fuel filter that was mounted here. So now we're going to move along and mount all of our fuel system and flex sensor. We're actually just going to go straight off of the bulkheads that are already in the floor and just sort of bring it up vertically, and then all we're going to do is run 2 hoses from here straight across, and then it's super neat and heaps tidier than the old setup. So we'll continue on. Now we're going to do a pressure test. So fuel spraying out everywhere. That's a good start. Clear prop. I was just looking at the ethanol content. So the ethanol content's 83, so the flex sensor is reading correctly. And our fuel pressure was right around 40 psi when it was running, which is pretty much spot on. It's holding 22 pound now, so let's see how we've got fuel pressure. We just finished the fuel system off, and I'm genuinely stoked with how neat that's actually come out. Having all of this space back is so much better, and once we get this cover sort of fabricated, it's going to just completely neaten the center of the car up. I think I'll probably actually make a timber cover out of MDF or plywood or whatever, but I'll get a proper cover fabricated out of aluminium. I'll probably make something to kind of give the fab guy a bit of a template. But yeah, I think sort of something pretty simple that more or less just follows the boot edge line with basically just a hole and a bit of a cylinder to go to the fuel filler. I think that'll make it pretty much super neat. I don't know if I'll carpet it or not, but yeah, it'll just make it so much tidier. The only other thing I've got to keep in mind when making this cover as well is that we do need to get to the parachute mount bolts. So potentially we'll just put a removable section through this front edge, either a lift off or maybe make it hinged. This doesn't actually need to be sealed because we've already got the firewall into the cabin area. So as far as race tech, this is actually compliant. But putting the cover on is more just to protect all these fuel lines and electrical connectors so that in the event of something shifting in the boot, we're not going to be cutting a fuel line or something. Because in the past, we have stacked the boot full of stuff during drag week and we haven't had an issue as yet, but inversely, I also don't want to wait until we have an issue to sort of try and fix the problem. So yeah, I think having these cover and everything, we're not losing any boot space by covering this, it's just making it safer. So yeah, I think it's going to be a win moving forward. But now we're going to chuck it up on the hoist and pull our 9-inch center out and swap it over for a new one. Quick grab it. Oh, lucky. If there's anything I hate, it's universal joints, eh? If you're working on your rear end and you've undone a uni for whatever reason and your caps fall off, which has literally just happened to me, it's handy to just run some tape around the uni. And, well, not that roll of tape. If you're working on the rear end of any car that doesn't have captive uni caps like this, a good way to stop them falling off is to just whack a bit of tape around. So while you're working on the rear end, it's not going to have a possibility of those caps falling off. I actually just dropped one then, and 9 times out of 10 all the rollers just yard sale everywhere. Luckily this time they actually stayed inside the cap. So I'm just going to support this tail shaft just with a twisty stand. It is just sitting on the tail shaft hoop at the moment, but I don't really want it to be sitting there like that, so I'll just put a twisty stand to just take the tension off it. Because yeah, you can actually ding the tube. I mean, it probably wouldn't be an issue, but I wouldn't want to find out. And the other thing is too, if it's sitting here on an angle, it's actually loading up the needle roller bearing on the extension housing of this. So it's not really designed for sideways load like that. So yeah, it's easier if you just support it and avoid any problems. I could just take it all the way out, but I think the box will spew out oil then. Hey, there's the oil. I just decided to take the tail shaft out because it's going to make it a lot easier to actually get the center out of the rear end housing. So I think it'll be easier and not too much of a headache. So hopefully it pretty much falls onto this transmission jack, and then I can drop it and yell at it for 20 minutes and then break a $2,500 rear end. Now you may be wondering why I've got such a crazy case for this diff center. Well, I guess the actual answer is these are quite expensive, so it's worth protecting them properly. A lot of people chuck them in milk crates and whatnot, but 9 times out of 10 you actually end up sitting it on the ring gear, so or the crown wheel, I should say. So yeah, I mean it's just a good little investment to protect the diff. These cases are actually pretty cheap. This was about $90 off eBay delivered. So yeah, having it basically bolted into this case and protected means we can literally take it all around the world if we have to, and it's not going to get damaged or beaten up. So and then if I want to send it Star Trek and then send it to Guy, they'll lose it in the middle of nowhere, and then someone else will end up with his diff. Fresh one. And this is how Benny dropped a $2,500 diff center. We've got our new 9-inch center completely installed. Unfortunately, this new 1350 yoke versus the original 1350 yoke, the diameter here where this shoulder is actually different. So this particular one is 45.9 millimeters, which equates to some imperial measurement. I've only got metric verniers and I haven't bothered to actually convert it, so I'm not too fussed about that. But this one is about 2 millimeters bigger. Fortunately, Haltech actually carry a pretty big variety of these magnetic collars. So already been on the phone, I've already ordered a 46 millimeter one. It should be close enough that worst case, even if I have to clearance these faces a tiny bit, that it will still get a good solid clamp on the yoke. So pretty easy to do. People are possibly wondering what this is actually for. So it's a 2-pole collar, which effectively gives you a magnetic pulse to the cherry sensor. And on this particular car, that's our vehicle speed, but also our tail shaft speed sensor. So as far as the vehicle setup, it does the speedo operation as well as torque management. We have sort of started to dabble with the Haltech torque management a little bit with the 2500. Matty's been helping me with that heaps. And when I say helping me, he's been doing all of it, and I just turn the computer on and plug it in. So yeah, massive thanks to Matty for his help as well. But yeah, we'll get one of these. I'm not going to bother filming chucking it on because it's literally 2 bolts and it sits right there. You guys have probably seen it installed on previous videos with the old center. So I'm actually just going to put this one in the case with the other center, because if for whatever reason we do need to swap that one back into the car, we're going to need this with that. So yeah, happy to keep those two together, because otherwise this is a big shop and I'll lose this, no doubt, and then I'll be screaming at someone and blame them even though it was my fault and I lost it. So old. A handy little tip if you've got really thin axle retaining nuts like these, when you're trying to install them, put 2 in the socket, and then that'll get your spacing pretty well spot on. And you can get it in there and get it started. You guys have probably seen us use those hand pumps time and time again to transfer volumes of oil into diffs and gearboxes and all sorts of stuff. In my experience, time and time again, those things don't like 85-140. I've finally now just bitten the bullet and made this bodgy jerry-rigged fuel pump to pump oil into the diff. So hopefully this old fuel pump will cop 85-140. Here goes nothing. Let's not run it backwards either. Oh, pump. Whoa. I mean, it's pumping, but it doesn't, I wouldn't say it loves it. There's also a check valve on the top of it. That probably won't help. Gian said it's full, so it's full, people. Pack up and go home. It's not bad for a first attempt. I think it needs some refining, like actually using a pump designed to pump oil would be ideal, but I mean, the proof of concept is there. Well, we've definitely ticked some jobs off the list today for the Cresta. The fuel system's now mega tidy, so that's going to enable us to be able to make this little covery deal for the fuel tank. Like I said before, I don't know if the end product will end up being timber or aluminium, because either's going to work, because it doesn't have to be sealed or fire retardant because it's in a boot, so whatever. But yeah, that's all sorted. We've also got our 3.5 diff in, full of oil. The one thing that I didn't really anticipate was that our tone ring is now the wrong size. Matty at Haltech sorted us out already with a new one, so hopefully that'll actually be here tomorrow, but we're not going to bother filming it because it's literally 2 bolts and throw it on. But pretty stoked with the outcome. Thanks to Jamie from Raceworks as always for always sending us bits at the last minute, because I always change the layout of stuff. Thanks also to Troy at Warspeed for the Motion Raceworks ethanol bypass kit. To my knowledge, he's the only Motion stockist in Australia. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But yeah, thanks to him also, because he also express posted that thing out overnight. So yeah, stoked to get it all finished. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.